Hello Internet, Seth Skorokowski, and today we'll be taking a look at the traveler adventure Mission to Mithril, written by Martin J. Doherty and published by Mongoose Publishing in 2018 as part of their second edition line. Coming in at 39 pages, the scenario is the second in the Spinward Marches series, appearing after High and Dry, but it can also be played very easily as a standalone. It's also an homage/sequel to the classic 1980 adventure Mission on Mithril. The scenario has quite a bit to offer us. We've got some mystery, some espionage, some survival, combat, and giant freaking worms, like Shai Hulud from Dune, but snowier. Spoilers, man. Normally, yeah, but in case you missed it, there is a giant freaking worm on the cover of the module. Kinda ruins the surprise. While my players and I did have quite a bit of fun with this scenario, there are definitely some parts that could use some improvement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer my criticisms and my suggestions as a game master who has successfully run this adventure. And I'm Jack the NPC. I'm going to be giving it to you from a player's side of things as well as my usual banter. But before we go any further, I must warn you that there will be spoilers. So any players in the audience, if you ever want to experience this adventure, please stop now. But definitely send your game master this way to see if Mission to Mithril would be a good fit for your group. Okay, GMs, let's do this. The module gives us a map of the Sword World sector where Mithril appears, as well as more detailed information about the planet itself, which should be available to the travelers in their ship's library. The module gives us a whole lot to work with, but the weakest point for me is the setup/backstory prior to the traveler's involvement. The super short version of all this is that there is a Sword Worlder spy that's returning home from a mission inside the Imperium. He's waiting for pickup at this frontier station on the backwater planet of Mithril, but meanwhile a group of shady Sword World merchants have learned about this spy, and they're afraid that his report is going to blow open their entire operation, so in order to protect themselves they've hired a group of mercenaries that they've sent to Mithril to deal with them. These mercenaries have killed everybody that's at the station, but one of the Sword Worlders, before they died, activated some sort of EMP device that was located underneath the landing pad at the port. But for no reason that's ever given, that EMP device doesn't actually arm until after the mercenaries have already left, which means by the time the adventure begins, that device is completely armed and ready to go off. Meanwhile, 2,000 miles away, a team of archaeologists are working to uncover some evidence of an ancient civilization, and that's when they got the distress call from the downport that something wrong was going on. Some of them wanted to go back to the downport, some of them didn't want to go right away. This led to some sort of altercation, and now their air raft is destroyed, and these people are now trapped out in the freezing wastes of this remote planet that you could pretty much just visualize like Hoth. The scenario itself begins when the travelers arrive at the planet. Why they're here is completely up to you. Come up with whatever reason you want, all of them are good enough. They know nothing about the spy and they know nothing about the attack. And their first hint that something is wrong or is about to go wrong is when no one is replying to their radio transmissions asking permission to land. Come in, Mithril Downport. Is anyone there? Anyone? You know, guys, it is a tiny base, and maybe their one radio guy is in the can right now, so let's just go ahead and land the ship and beg forgiveness later. As their ship touches down on the landing pad, the EMP device detonates, and it fries all of the gravity lifters for not just the ship, but any sort of anti-gravity vehicles that were on board the ship. Now this has effectively grounded their ship, and they're completely marooned on this planet until they can find the part in order to get their grav lifters working. A grav lifter is a nothing pot till you don't got one, and then it appears to be everything. Investigating the downport will reveal several signs of battle. Some blood splatters, bullet holes, shell casings, that sort of thing. The now fried EMP device that's located in one of the buildings, and a couple corpses burned beyond recognition or any identification. Also the air raft that's normally parked inside one of the buildings. You can see the spot where you park it. However, the air raft is not there, and it's supposed to have the missing part that the travelers need in order to get off of this planet. Okay, abandoned snow outpost. Weird mystery, burned corpses. Guys, I am about 400% sure that we just walked into John Carpenter's The Thing. Now the travelers are going to logically assume that this EMP device was some sort of intentional trap that was meant to trap them on this planet. Maybe pirates set it and now they're trapped there and the pirates can come back and take them out at their leisure. And there's no way for the travelers to really figure out what's really going on or figure out what happened here before. So they're probably going to follow a couple wild goose chases, and it's possible they might go through the module without ever realizing what's really going on here. Now my recommendation here is to have it be a little bit more obvious, a little bit bit easier for them to figure out. Devices like this EMP one are probably not that uncommon as a way that different starports use to ground ships that might be, fleeing the sector after they've done some sort of crime or whatnot. So when they find it, they should be able to recognize what it is. They know that this is something that was permanently set up here and what its use is. And then when they look at it, they can see that there's several bullet holes in it because there was a battle at the same spot. And then if you give them an electronics skill or the like, they can then figure out that those bullets must have struck the device and damaged the device. So it took 15 hours for it to charge up, meaning that the device wasn't actually fully armed until after who had done all this had probably already left, and that's why it was armed when the traveler's ship came down. It still requires a little bit of an investigation, maybe a few rolls, but it's now something that they can figure out. Eventually, the travelers are going to receive a signal from a distress beacon. For this, we get a map showing the signal's location, which is about 2,200 kilometers away. Go ahead and give your players this map. The planet's terrain should be known, mapped out, and should be easy to find inside the starport. Now, with their ship and any of their anti-gravity vehicles down, getting to the spot is going to be a little hard for them to do.
Unless, of course, your characters have a helicopter, or a plane, or an ornithopter, or an airship. It was just air rafts and grav sleds that went out. We could still use those other vehicles, right?
I guess, but that's not what you're supposed to do.
Screw what I'm supposed to do. If my character packed a freaking helicopter in our ship's hold, you can bet your butt that I am going to use my freaking helicopter.
That is a really good point. Okay, Game Masters, what you need to do is keep in mind that your characters in your group might actually have some vehicles or equipment that could allow them to get there a lot easier, so you're going to have to adapt your game to take into account any sort of vehicles that they might have with them, because the module just assumes that they don't have any sort of alternate means of transport there, so you're going to have to adapt it for your campaign. But definitely keep in mind the range and maximum passengers if they are using a vehicle of their own, because that could lead to a wide array of new problems, such as, they go out there and they run out of gas before they can get back, and now they're trapped out there. Or they completely load up their vehicle to the maximum amount of occupants, then they go out to where the signal is, and now they can't carry anyone home. Maybe that means they're going to have to be ferrying back and forth, leaving, different people at different locations, and that could lead to its own problems. So if they have a helicopter or something like that, it doesn't mean that they can't do the adventure, it's just really going to change the flavor of it. Now, providing that they don't have a chopper like the module assumes, the only way that they can reach this signal is by taking this incredibly awesome APC that was left at the station. And it comes equipped with a wide array of cool gear for them to survive this frozen world. Now, crossing the distance between these points is going to be the bulk of the adventure. They're going to have to deal with weather conditions, difficult terrain, and many of the local creatures that are living on this planet. Given the terrain and the APC speed, which is extremely slow, the journey is going to easily take a week or more each way. And we get several tables that Game Masters can check each day to determine the weather conditions like temperatures and storms. Now, my suggestion here is just to speed all this up. That way, when you're playing, you don't have to slow everything down. It's just to pre-roll 3 weeks worth of weather. That way, during the game, you don't have to roll and stop and consult a table. You just have it ready to go, and we can keep straight to the action in the adventure. We also get tables over incidents and mishaps that can happen along the way, as well as some set incidents that the Game Master can drop in whenever and wherever they like. Now, this journey is the bulk of the adventure, so Game Masters, you're going to have to be on your toes for this one to keep the game moving and fun, and not just become a series of rolls where we're just trying to get on and on to the next encounter. No, this is the adventure. Don't try to rush past it. Make this exciting and fun. They might suffer breakdowns. They might get lost. They might encounter weird alien animals, or they can make different cool discoveries that they get to share with the scientists and possibly get a little bit of financial reward for in the future. Once they get within a couple hundred clicks of the signal's origin, that's when they reach radio range and they can communicate back and forth, and they're going to discover that a family of archaeologists have now been stranded here and they're in desperate need for some help.
Sure, but just so you know, our APC can only hold 4 people comfortably, so it's about to get really cozy in there.
They're also going to learn that the air raft that the travelers need in order to get this part, to get their ship out of there, the air raft isn't there at all, and it was last seen headed off in a different direction. So now the player characters are going to need to go and find it.
What? It is not enough that we just spent 10 freaking days fighting giant worms and getting ice lice, but now we have to keep searching?
Eventually, the player characters will discover this damaged air raft as well as 2 more starving survivors. They're also going to get attacked by a colossal snow worm, which should prove to be exciting. This thing is bad news, and it will probably flee long before the travelers can manage to kill it. Now, once this part is secured, the travelers and presumably 6 NPC survivors that are now with them are going to begin the long trek back to the station. Again, this part should be long and enjoyable and fun. Have a lot of fun with this. It's a great role-playing opportunity as different tempers flare, and certain people might have to ride on the outside of this vehicle that's at, -10 to -50 degrees centigrade. So you can have a lot of role-play fun here, so do not breeze past this. Have a lot of fun. Take your time. Meanwhile, the bad guys have managed to jump back home, and they've learned that the files that were supposed to be on the spy were not on the spy. They were evidently still back at the downport, so the mercenaries need to go back and get these files. They also got scolded a little bit for possibly leaving survivors on this planet, so now their mission is to come back to the planet, get these files, and make sure there are no witnesses and no survivors. Shortly before the travelers get back to base, they're going to receive a notification that a ship is entering orbit, and the fact that this ship is not trying to radio down to get any sort of landing clearance or whatnot should tip the travelers off that these people are already aware that there should be no one alive at the downport. The mercenary ship is going to drop off a few of the mercenaries at the downport, tear the place apart and look for something, as well as take care of any survivors. And then the ship is going to take off, circle around, start doing a search pattern, and then it's going to go launching off in a distant direction looking for a strange radiation signature that it picked up, which means that the mercenaries that are at the downport are right now unguarded. What the travelers do next is completely up to them. Maybe they'll charge in, guns blazing, take out all the mercenaries, get their ship's guns powered up, and then ambush the mercenary ship once it returns. Maybe they'll sneak in and quietly repair their ship, get it charged up, get everyone on board, and then fly out of there before any of the mercenaries know they were there. It is completely up to them.
For us, we did a little bit of both. First thing we did is we hacked into the downport security feed and we counted how many mercs there were, where they were, and kind of noticed that they were looking for something in particular. And then 2 of our crew snuck on board our ship, started the repairs up, and started getting that power booted back on. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew went around to the far side of the base in the APC, and they started acting like they were returning from some sort of extended stay away. And they were wondering, who are you people in our base? Where are our friends and all this stuff? Running distraction. That way nobody would notice that ship back there was turning on. And then once everything was ready, we turned those turrets on those mercenaries, and that is when payback began. Once that was done, we hustled aboard our ship and flew on out of there before the mercenary ship could return.
I'm also going to mention that one thing that I added to the module was an autocannon to the APC's turret. I figured that this APC is pretty much the starport's only defense. Essentially, this APC is the entire military of this entire planet, so they're going to have some sort of big gun on it, at least a big enough gun that they can handle on it. I also figured it'd be a lot of fun for the player characters to blast the hell out of something with it, so I went ahead and put it in.
And that autocannon was freaking awesome. We spent the entire game just itching for an excuse to shoot that thing, and finally getting to open it up on those mercenary jerks that caused this whole mess was totally worth the wait.
Overall, my players and I had a lot of fun with this adventure. However, there are some issues with the layout as far as where the information is located in the book that doesn't feel that intuitive, and it's difficult to find it in-game. So game masters are going to need to prepare themselves before running this adventure in order to keep this running smooth and not have to spend any time flipping through the book and searching for that thing that they know they read at some point, but they can't figure out where it was when they want to go back and reference it. Another criticism that I have is that much of the module feels a little bit overly wordy. And some of the information, as I said, can be pretty hard to find. For example, at the very beginning of the backstory of the module on page 7 says that the mercenaries took the data and notes when they raided the base. But then on page 29 it reveals that the mercenaries failed to get the data files. And then on page 30 it reveals where the data files were hidden on the base. Now personally for me, it would have made just a lot more sense and been a lot easier to find it in-game had they just mentioned up front that they didn't get all the data files. Just make that very clear at the beginning and not just kind of hide that away at the back of the module, kind of like these data files are hidden in the downport. And then, in the detailed description of all the different base locations, which is pages 12 through 15, note where the still hidden file folder is, because it's possible that the player characters might discover it at some point when they're first doing their initial search of the compound. They're not going to know what it is, they're not going to know why it's there, but they might discover it, and now the mercenaries are tearing the place apart, and the PCs are walking around going, oh crap, we got this thing on us the whole time. However, the way the module currently lays it out, they put the location of these files on the last page of the actual description parts of the module. After that's all the equipment and whatnot. Page 30 was the last page of the actual adventure, and that's where they included that information kind of like an afterthought. Now, a few changes that I made before I ran this scenario is one, I moved the signals location a little bit closer to the downport. It is still pretty far away, but I felt that the original location was just a little bit too far. It still took the characters 8 days to reach the signal and another 5 days to get home, but also the standard air raft doesn't have near the range to reach either location and then return, so I went ahead and changed the air raft to a longer range model, kind of like a flying van. The other thing that I don't like is splitting up the survivors into these two separate groups, where the travelers reach the first one only to find out that the air raft isn't there, and now they have to search around 200 clicks of snowy plains in order to figure out where this is, and it becomes a little frustrating and dangerous. And it seems kind of odd to me how far this damaged air raft made it after it left. It made it 200 kilometers, so instead of saying that, oh yeah, they took the air raft and it looked damaged and it's off that way somewhere, go ahead and have the people that they meet the first time say the air raft isn't here, but we know exactly where it is. Maybe say it's on the opposite side of some really incredibly deep gorge, and they can even see each other across this gorge. However, none of these survivors even had the equipment to bypass this gorge or cross it, and trying to bypass the gorge would conveniently take 200 kilometers of driving in order to get to the other side. So now you can say that the air raft, it was damaged and it went down right over there. Small gripe, I know, but I think a gorge or a chasm works a lot better, and it can be pretty exciting because now the travelers, they might not want to drive across it, and now they're setting up lines and crawling across and all sorts of, different things they could do to overcome this obstacle, and I think that could be a lot more fun. Also, it really does annoy me that it's near impossible for the player characters to learn all the details of what's going on with this spy and this data file, and why the mercenaries attacked, or why this EMP went off but didn't seem to go off when the mercenaries were there the first time. So instead of it all being this huge secret that the player characters might not ever be able to figure out the answers to, I changed the setup of the adventure. When they started the adventure, I told them that they were going to Mithril in order to pick up a spy that the Imperium had found out about, and they had captured the ship. The people that were supposed to go pick up the spy the first time, they went ahead and captured the ship, took the cargo that they're supposed to be dropping off at Mithril Downport, gave the cargo to the player characters, and gave them orders to go there, pretend they're just a normal shipping crew, drop off the cargo, pick up any passengers. One of them's going to be the spy, and get that spy out of there. So, armed with that knowledge, the travelers took the cargo, they flew it down to Mithril, and they thought that the adventure was going to be just get the spy and the information. They already knew that there was a group of shady merchants out there that were looking for this spy, and then the rest of the details they could figure out pretty easily from there as far as what happened. It might require a few skill rolls and whatnot, but at least gives them kind of a starting direction, a pretty big head start in order to put the pieces together. So I changed the setup enough that the travelers arrived at Mithril expecting one thing, which is going to be espionage and a snatch and grab, and it still had a pretty big surprise as to what they found. Now, of course, Game Masters, you can choose to change it or not change it however you want. It's completely up to you. I'm just throwing this out as a different option of a different way you could approach this scenario. So, in conclusion, Mission to Mithril was a lot of fun for us. Game Masters should really prepare for this adventure. That way all the charts and tables don't slow them down. And be ready for a whole lot of improvisation and try to keep the journey across the ice exciting and fun. But I recommend you check it out.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as how-tos and game reviews, just hit that subscribe button. Till next time, travelers, you have a great day. I'm a little disappointed that adventure didn't turn into the thing. I mean, we still had fun and everything, but we have played so many horror games over the years that I spent that entire session just expecting that one of those people we rescued would just rip open into some sort of monster or something.